Well, hello, and welcome to the Alpha Male 2.0 podcast. We're like into the 130s of these things. I've been doing this for a long time. I'm shocked. I am Caleb Jones, and if you weren't aware, I have another podcast called Sovereign CEO, and that is where we talk about business and international Five Flags topics. You want to check that out because I release this podcast once a week and that podcast once a week. If you want to subscribe to that one, you can go to calebjones.com/podcast, and I'm on all the usual podcast platforms. And if you're listening to this podcast, I also do a video version of this podcast at my YouTube channel and other alt tech sites like Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, because YouTube sucks. So if you want to check that out, you can go to, alphamale20.com/links, and that'll give you all the links for that. I was ruminating, that's the word of the day. I was ruminating the other day. I'm here in Guadalajara, Mexico, and something about being in South America, or not, this isn't South America, the Latin world. I gotta be accurate here. I'm used to going to South America. Usually I'm going to, Paraguay and places like that. But anyway, there's something about coming to the more relaxed environment of the Latin world that kind of relaxes your brain a little bit. You start thinking about things you probably normally don't think about. At least that's my experience. And I was ruminating on the differences in my life between when I was a beta male and today when I'm an alpha male, specifically Alpha Male 2.0. And beyond the obvious things, yes, I get laid a hell of a lot more. And yes, when I get laid, the quality of woman is incomparable. And yes, I make a lot more money. And yes, I have, as a 2.0, I have far more freedom, far more happiness. The big obvious things that we talk about here at Alpha Male 2.0 all the time. So obviously those are differences, but I'm talking about the subtle differences. So here's one, there's a few of them, but here's one. This made me chuckle when I thought about it because I hadn't thought about this since it happened. I mean, 25, 30 years ago. So if you didn't know, I should probably cover that really quick. I was a beta male until I was 33 years old. And then I made the transition from beta male to alpha male 2.0 starting in my early 30s. I went through a divorce. I was traditionally monogamously married and also went through the financial collapse of 2008. And that helped me transition, these pain points actually helped me transition into a much better, much more effective, much more happy life, Alpha Male 2.0, than being a beta male. But I was a beta male, a typical normal beta, my whole life up from age 0 into school, into high school, in my 20s and my early 30s. And when I was in my 20s, as some of you know, I started my first full-time business when I was 24 years old. I worked part-time many years before that, but I actually quit my day job. My last real corporate job, was working for Nike at corporate Nike headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon. Back in 1996, and I quit my job and went full-time with my first company. And I did that when I was 24. So through most of my 20s, I was self-employed. I was a beta and I was kind of a nerd and I wore suits and ties, and they were not the kind of suits and ties you should wear. And because I didn't quite understand how to dress, because as men, we don't know how to dress. We have to be taught how to dress. Women understand how to dress. Gay guys understand how to dress. Heterosexual guys, particularly more masculine guys, we don't know how to dress. The default for fashion, by the way, if you weren't aware of this, is you will want to dress the way people dressed when you went to high school. So if you went to high school in the 80s, like I did, you're kind of stuck with 80s styles in your head. If you went to high school in the 90s, you're kind of stuck with 90s styles. If you went to high school in the 70s, okay, you're stuck, so whatever. So you have to make sure that when you dress, you move with time, you don't get stuck in time. It's very important. But anyway, off topic for this topic of this podcast. But I would dress in suits and ties, and I would dress in very nice clothes. I would dress in, nice as much as I could afford. Slacks, button-down shirts, nice business shoes. I was a very clean-cut individual, and I still am to a degree. You'll notice I have no facial hair. I don't have any tattoos. I don't have any earrings. I did have an earring when I was in my high school and my early 20s. But I'm a pretty clean-cut guy, and I don't have long hair, And so, what would happen, this happened more than once, and I can remember a specific evening where this occurred, where I was over at my mom and dad's house visiting. I was probably, I would say 25 years old, maybe 25, 26. I just started my business a year or two ago, and I was dressed in one of my, 25-year-old versions of suits that you get at Men's Warehouse. Those $300 suits you get for the job interview, those kind of suits that I thought were really cool back then. I didn't make a lot of money back then. So dressed in one of these suits, but I looked okay. I looked fine. But I looked very clean cut. I'm wearing a suit. My hair was nice and perfect, and didn't have any tattoos, and I didn't drink. I'd never been drunk my entire life. Didn't smoke. Didn't do any drugs, any of that stuff. So my mom, I don't know why I was there. This is, 25 years ago. I don't remember details, but I was there and my mom had a bunch of her friends over, the other moms in the neighborhood, the other older moms. And I still remember this. I was opening up the refrigerator and I heard this, it was the sound of a camera going off, okay? And I turned and looked, and one of the moms had just taken a picture of me. And when I turned and looked at her, she put the camera down and looked away like this. She just looked away. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Why is this old mom taking my picture? Is this like some kind of cougar and what's going on here? And then only later did I find out through my mom and I think also my sister, this mom, like several of these moms, had daughters who were about my age, maybe a few years younger. And they were all gossiping with mom gossip about, oh my God, Linda's son, Caleb. Oh, he's such a catch. Oh my gosh, that is the man that I need to set up with my daughter. That is the perfect guy because he's a gentleman and he wears a suit and he has his own company, even though he's young and he's smart and he doesn't drink and he doesn't smoke and doesn't do drugs and he's polite. And in other words, I was the perfect beta male provider. They talk about, alpha fucks, beta bucks. I was beta bucks, even though I didn't have any bucks back then. I was pretty poor back then. I was just starting to, ramp my income up a little bit. But I was literally, and this would make me laugh the other day when I thought about this, I was literally the perfect ideal beta male that all the moms in the neighborhood wanted their daughters to marry. Literally. And what's fascinating is within a 15-year time span from there, let's see, that was when I was 25, so I made the conversion at 33. I was hardcore into that conversion by the time I was in my late 30s. So yeah, about less than 15 years. 13 years later, I was literally the exact opposite. I was the bad guy who women should stay away from. So here's the opposite experience that I had, and I had this experience more than once. I was dating someone at the time, an MLTR, and she really wanted to introduce me to her parents. Now, you don't do that with MLTRs, but this is when that system was somewhat new. I didn't have these rules down yet. So I said, whatever, all right, fine. And so I met this woman's parents, and they didn't dislike me, but they're like, this guy's kind of arrogant, kind of cocky. I don't know. And then this woman later, after I left, told them my whole system about fucking other women and non-monogamy. And these parents just lost their fucking minds. How dare you date a man like that? He's a piece of shit. He's a scumbag. Don't go anywhere near him. You need to marry a nice guy. And then they would go on to describe the man I used to be 13 years prior. So it is so hilarious to me that I started out in this perfectly societally acceptable box. And I was miserable and unhappy. And then only to switch from a beta male lifestyle to an alpha male 2.0 lifestyle where I'm happy beyond belief. I have unlimited freedom. I am so happy I can't believe it. I live literally a fantasy life. And now I'm in a box that is completely societally inappropriate. And I talk about this in my primary book, The Unchained Man, at alphamalebook.com. I talk about how when you pursue a lifestyle based on long-term happiness instead of transitory, temporary happiness, like let's get married and we'll be happy for 6 months and then be bored and depressed for the next 20 years if we don't get divorced. Permanent long-term happiness, long-term masculine freedom, one of the prices you pay for this lifestyle is that you're not going to get the accolades that the beta males get, and some alpha male 1.0s get. Usually it's beta males. So you're not gonna get the pat on the head from your mommy and daddy about how good little boy you are. You're not gonna get the approval from your boss and your coworkers. You're not gonna get the approval from your family. You're not. You're gonna get a lot of weird looks. And you're gonna get a lot of, people whispering about you behind your back. You're gonna get a lot of that. I get it all the time. I'm used to it now. I don't care because I'm outcome independent. Be aware of the fact that if societal acceptance is really important to you, which is a terrible idea. If societal acceptance is really important to you, you'll never be happy. But if you're in that category, then alpha male 2.0 isn't for you. You should be a beta male. You should go work for Intel and dress in khaki pants and a button-down shirt and go marry some woman who is 35 and a single mother who's kind of overweight and get monogamous and get traditionally married and don't sign a prenup and have a good job and go get a good college degree and go get a good job in the tech industry. And then your mom and your dad will pat you on the head as to what a good little boy you are. And you're going to get all these, your sounds like you're doing really well from all the people in your family members and all your friends. And you'll be fucking miserable for the rest of your life. You'll be depressed, you'll be jerking off to porn, you'll be fantasizing about what could have been. You won't be happy, but you will get the acceptance. And I know that that is one of the biggest changes, the biggest shifts that I encountered in my life, even though I barely detected it because I'm so outcome independent about this stuff. I'm also an introvert, I'm also an INTJ, so that stuff kind of helps that too. But I made this transition, and I didn't realize I made this transition until years later, from the perfectly societally acceptable man to the completely inappropriate man. So do you think I would ever want to go back to that beta male I was when I was in my 20s? Because everyone thought I was appropriate, everyone liked me. No, my God. I shiver when I think about my life back in my 20s. Through half my 20s, I was traditionally monogamously married. And so whenever I wanted to have sex, I would go approach the wife for sex, and she would say no, and we would argue for 45 minutes. And then I'd have to go jerk off to porn. And that was my sex life. And that is the typical sex life of the traditional married man once he's been married longer than 3 years. And the stats and all the statistics bear all this out. If you want to go look at my blog, you can check out all the stats there. But that's the standard model. Today, when I want to have sex, I have sex. It is extremely rare that I don't have sex when I want to have sex. And when I have sex, the woman is a 9 or a 10. And I mean that literally. It's a 9 or a 10. And I'm married, so if she says no, which is unusual, she doesn't usually say no, because I'm non-monogamous, that's how it works, you're non-monogamous, because she knows she can't control your dick. If she does say no, I have numerous other options that I avail myself of. And I see my FBs about once a week anyway, even if she says yes, because again, I don't want to rely 100% on my sex life for one woman. Moreover, it's not just about sex, that's only a component of it, it's also about money and freedom. So instead of having a good corporate job with a good college degree, because I have neither of those things, I have the Alpha 2.0 business structure. I have several companies, about 17 different income streams, all of them location dependent, all of them I control completely. None of them require a lot of time to manage unless I choose to put my time into those things. I can travel the world whenever I want. I'm not rooted to any one country or region. Most of the work that I'm doing is work that I enjoy doing. How many guys with a job can say that? How many guys with a job can say that most of their job, they really enjoy it? There's a few of those guys, and you might be in this category. The vast majority of men would go, ugh, hell no. Maybe 5% I like and 95% I hate, if that. And that would not be an option for me as a beta male. And I wanted to bring this up in this podcast. You will recall that when I was a beta male, for most of that time, I was self-employed. It's not like I was a wage slave or a corporate, drone when I was a beta male. I had my own business. And you can have, as I've talked about many times, high income, successful business owner beta males. Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, right? These are all high income, successful betas. So even though I quickly got to the point where I was making a six-figure income in 1990s dollars in my late 20s, as a self-employed guy, I was still a beta. I was not living the alpha male 2.0 life. I was location dependent because I had a location dependent business. I had salaried employees that I had to manage. I had to work 70 hours a week. It's hilarious. And this is a side point. I was working the same hours or maybe even longer hours back in my 20s that I work now. And I make, I make around 10x what I was making back then. Just around 10x. Really, 10x my income, but I'm working the same hours. Actually, I'm probably working a little less because at least now I take a full day week off. I wasn't taking any days a week off back then until I made these transitions. So across the board, my lifestyle was worse, even though I was quote unquote successful by the outside looking in. Matter of fact, by the time I was in my late 20s as a self-employed beta male, I was making a six-figure income. I was married to a cute blonde wife. I had two really good kids, my son and my daughter. And we were living in the, I want to say it was the second or third most expensive neighborhood in the state of Oregon. We literally lived on top of a mountain in a house that was worth almost $1 million. And again, this is, $1 million 20 years ago. So do the inflation math on that. My wife at the time drove a really nice car. I drove a really nice car. At least one of my children went to a reasonably expensive private Catholic school. So again, by the outside looking in, I looked great. My mom and dad were so proud of me. Oh my gosh. And I was fucking miserable. I was stressed as fuck every day. Every month, I was worried about paying my bills, even though I was making six figures. Every month, I was worried about paying my bills. I was massively in debt. My taxes were all fucked up. I was working my ass off 70 hours a week at a job that just stressed me the fuck out. My marriage was, bad at the end. So my marriage was 9 years. So the first half of the marriage was fine. The second half was really bad. So that's 4.5 years of bad. So I'm constantly arguing with the wife. I'm having sex once or twice a month. Oh my God, shoot me in the face. I mean, across the board, I'm miserable, but I was societally appropriate as a beta male. And when I made that transition to alpha male 2.0, all those things got fixed. All those things on a scale from a 1 to 10 are now like a 9 or a 10 in my life. But now I don't look that good. Now, to some people, I look pretty good. To a lot of you, I look pretty good. I understand that. But to like the normal traditional person who says, oh, you have your own business, where's your building? Oh, you have your own business, where's your website? And I do have a website, but there's not much on there. I have blogs that have a lot of content, and I have YouTube channels and things like that. Oh, you have your own business, you're on the internet. How many YouTube followers do you have? 7,000. Oh my, and the people roll their eyes, right? Even though I'm not gonna tell you what I make, but I make a lot of money off those 7,000 followers. A lot of money. So I'm not nearly as appropriate anymore, but my life is 10 times better. Does that make sense? And the reason I'm bringing this up in this podcast is because you're gonna have to be prepared for this. Some of you are more introverted, more robotic, less emotional, more outcome independent guys, and you're not gonna give a shit about this. You're just like, so I don't care, I don't fucking care what my mom thinks. Great. But a lot of you are not in that category. A lot of you are outcome dependent. A lot of you are Asian or Indian, and you're worried about what your mom and dad think and your family thinks. A lot of you guys are more emotional, more connected people. You're gonna worry about what your friends think, what your parents think, what your coworkers think, and you're gonna worry about how you're gonna look different to these people, because you will. You will. My family looks at me very oddly. And I have a few weird people in my family. But I'll tell you for a fact, I'm probably the weirdest person. According to my family, I'm probably the weirdest person in the family. And they're like, oh, Caleb, why is he doing that now? He's so weird. Why is he doing that? Now, I'm the happiest person in my family. And they will quietly admit this, that I'm the happiest person. But I'm the weirdest person. And they don't understand. And they won't understand you. When you make this transition into alpha male 2.0, non-monogamy, multiple women, multiple companies, location-dependent income, traveling the world if that's what you want, having a business that you can't see or touch, that you can't actually identify. And by the way, I mean that literally. So when I had my CCM company for many years, I shut it down about a year ago because the pandemic replaced it with something else. But for years, I was making good money in my CCM company, and there was no website. So not only was there no building, there was no website for it. It was a completely offline, location-dependent business, okay? Literally, I had to use my LinkedIn page if people asked for a website for it, because I didn't have a website. But that business was a strong 6-figure income stream for me for many years. It's a 6-figure business that had no building and no website. And again, you say that to people and go, well, that's not a real business. It's not. Well, this is real cash in my bank. I know that's real. And that's my point. If you want the accolades, Alpha Male 2.0 may not be for you. Just be aware of this. And if you are concerned about that, and I understand, I don't share those feelings, but I understand those feelings. If you are concerned about what people think about you or what your parents think about you or your friends, family, coworkers, peers, mentors, what have you, if that's a strong concern for you, but you still want to make these transitions in your life, you got to ask yourself a very simple question. How badly do you want it? How badly do you want it? And that's where your vision comes in, not your mission. Mission is very important. But your vision is that 1 or 2 page document that describes everything in your life if it was perfect. And when you read that, you should go, hopefully, you know what? That is worth my mom and dad looking at me strangely and complaining about my life. That's worth it. The money, the lifestyle, the freedom, the women, all those things, the happiness, and again, I'm going to say the freedom. Freedom! That's worth my friends from college thinking I'm a weirdo. That's worth it. You know what? Because it is. I wouldn't trade my life for any other person I have met in my life at my age. Now, there are some men I know who are much older than me who live better lives than I do, who I look up to as my mentors, but they're in their 70s, so I still wouldn't trade me for them. So I don't know how many men you can find in the world who would say that their life that they have right now, and this is true, I would not trade my life for any other person I know's life that I can think of. Maybe I'm forgetting about somebody, but I'm pretty sure, I just thought through it in my head, who would I trade my life with? Well, Caleb, what about Mark Zuckerberg? Are you fucking kidding? No. Running that business, married to that woman? No, thank you. I would far rather have my life. Yes, he has a private jet. I don't need a private jet. I have freedom. I have something Mark Zuckerberg doesn't have. I have freedom. There you go. So that's how well this is worth it. So that's the only decision you have to make in terms of this problem. Is it worth it or not? Now, if it's not worth it, if it really isn't, And I know for a fact, there are some of you in my audience where it's not worth it. You say, you know what, I like a lot of what you talk about, Caleb, but this stuff, I just can't get there. Great. Then take the bits and pieces and the aspects I talk about from Alpha Male 2.0 and integrate those aspects in your life. You'll never be Alpha Male 2.0. You'll never be as happy as me. You'll never be as free as me. Okay, but you've chosen that, and that's okay. As long as you're aware of these decisions that you're making, that's all right. This is a very big topic, and as usual, I could do, another podcast or two on this topic. If that is of interest to you, let me know in the comments, or you can send me an email, theonlyblackdragon@gmail.com, or DM me on Instagram, or all the places I'm located in, and I will see you in the next podcast next week. Have fun. Bye.